How's it going, everyone? My name is Devon from DEBO's Fishing, and today we're going to be going over a lure that came in the Strike King Takeover Box, the Strike King Rodent. Now I'm going to be giving you an up-close look at this and going over some options for rigging. I'm going to take you through some of my recommendations for the rod, reel, and line setup, and then I'll even give you a few tips for fishing this thing that I've learned over the years of throwing it. So enough of this, let's get an up-close look. No, it's not a mouse or a rat-shaped lure. Oftentimes you hear these referred to as like a beaver tail lure. It's got, you know, like a big flat beaver tail looking deal back there. Straight pitch and plastic. It's really just a creature bait without a bunch of appendages on it. It doesn't have a big curly tail. It doesn't have a bunch of side appendages to get caught in stuff. It's meant to be flipped and pitched around wood and cover. Now I know some guys use this as like a chatterbait trailer. Of course you can use it on the back of a jig. It works great for that. But my favorite way to fish it, and I think what's best for beginners, is just a regular old Texas rig. These come in a bunch of different nice colors. This is the blue Craw red flake. You've got the Craw Daddy, which is a black and kind of orangish brown, very natural craw color. A great dirty water color that people don't talk about enough. This is swamp water blue. Oftentimes you hear it referred to as like sapphire blue or something like that. The old candy craw, kind of a light green pumpkin color with these purple and green flakes, one of my favorites around here in the Midwest. And of course we can't leave out the tequila sunrise black and orange flake. Now a couple things for rigging this up. You'll see on that Tequila Sunrise I've got it rigged up exactly how I like. How about just a regular round bend worm hook like this? Will this work? It will work. However, the trouble that I run into with a worm hook like this, you know, if this is all you got, of course go throw it, but the trouble I run into with the worm hook like this, you rig it up nice and weedless, and oftentimes you'll get a bite, and what will happen is as you set that hook, it will kind of all bunch up down here, and you notice you're getting barely any, I can't even feel it yet. It's in here somewhere. There we go. You're not getting hardly any hook penetration, and you'll miss all kinds of fish like that. If you're missing bites and you bring your plastic up like this and it's all balled up at the bottom, I would recommend changing hooks if you're using something like this. A worm hook like this is meant for, get that back up there, a skinnier bodied bait, something like, you know, a ribbon tail worm, 8-inch, you know, power bait ribbon tail worm, something like that, that doesn't have a bunch of meat that it can get through easily. Now what about a flipping hook like this? Yeah, either a 3/0 for the 3-inch or a 4/0 for the 4-inch. I keep it easy that way, 3 to 3, 4 to 4. Something like this is great, and I know a lot of people that like this recommend it, but I feel like I get hung up more. The hookup percentage is really good, because if we rig that up on here, this is what it looks like weedless, nice and straight. But as soon as you set the hook and push that down through, this 4/0 flipping hook has a bigger belly. The hook's coming through. Now you can see what happens, and hopefully that's right in the fish's, the roof of the fish's mouth, and that's what you've got. So this is a great type of hook for that. For a bank angler though, I personally don't like this as much. I feel like I get hung up more because after time goes by, this will start happening. The tip kind of pops out, you get hung up. So for me, I grab a tungsten weight. Usually a quarter is what I start out with when I'm bank fishing. This is a 3/8. Throw that on there. I try to go not pegged if I can get away with it. And I go a 4/0 EWG wide gap hook like this. Now this hook's a little bit different. So instead of this straight shanked flipping hook where it's just like a J bend, this has a big belly on it, then comes down flat. And what that allows you to do as you rig it up is take this hook, just barely poke it into the plastic like that. They call it texposing. And it's nice and weedless. You can run your hand over it like that. You can flip and pitch it in and around wood and grass. You don't get hung up. And for a bank angler, that's probably one of the most frustrating things, because you can't just drive your boat out and get it unstuck. If you get stuck out there, you got to break it off and, you know, tie it all again. Oh, and one other thing, break those little deals apart back there. And if you want a real slick looking deal, maybe you're in a bunch of grass and you don't want to get caught, break those little legs off like that, and it comes through cover extremely easy and looks kind of like a crawdad down there just flapping its little claws. All right, so now that we talked about rigging, let's go over and talk about the rod and reel combos. Okay, so for me, I really break it down into two separate combos. Number one is my kind of do-it-all, multi-purpose. I'm walking around, you know, the ponds and lakes here in the Midwest, and that's going to be a 7-foot to a 7'4" medium heavy, rated for lures up to 1 ounce. I know I'm like a broken record with this, but a medium heavy rated up to like 3/4 or 1 ounce does so much for you. And this happens to be the 7'4" medium heavy moderate fast. Super versatile rod, a little bit longer. So like I said, 7 foot to 7'4", because if you've got a bunch of cover, you know, like trees and stuff around, when you're trying to flip and pitch from the bank, it can be a little bit more difficult as opposed to a boat. You know, you could have a 7'6", 7'9" flip and stick because you're up on a raised platform flipping out. So a little bit different for bank fishing. That 7-ish to 7'4" range is what I like. Now, as far as the lure rating, again, most of these I'm going to rig up on like a 3/8 is usually the heaviest that I'll go. With a little plastic like this, but this plastic adds weight too. So once you get your hook, your weight, and this on, it's a pretty, you know, stout little rig you can flip and pitch around. But my cover is going to dictate how heavy I go. So that's kind of my first one, my all-purpose medium heavy setup. Now, the second setup I go to and recommend is a heavy. So again, that 7 foot to 7/4. I don't know if that's going to show. This is a heavy power rod. You can see that there, rated for lures up to 1.5 ounces. So up to 1.5 ounces, that's pretty standard for a lot of the heavy rods you'll find. Again, it depends on the company. Some companies will have a heavy that only goes up to, you know, lures rated to 1 ounce, some to 1.5 ounces, and they can feel about the same. So just kind of depends on the company. But I dictate whether I'm going from the medium heavy or to the heavy depending on the cover that I'm fishing. So if I'm just kind of fishing light grass or, you know, light logs, you know, just a few here and there, usually I'm going to go to the medium heavy because, you know, if it runs in a little bit of grass or if it runs behind a log, that's usually enough to get them out. Now, if I'm flipping and pitching really thick brush, you know, really heavy cover, I want this heavier rod. I want more backbone. I want more power to get into that fish and get them turned around quicker. Now, you know, there's other things that come into play like that. A little bit longer rod will help with that. A number of things, but usually my setup, my rod and reel and line is going to be dictated by the cover when I'm flipping and pitching. Now, as far as the reels on both of these, I recommend a reel that's got an aluminum frame. Great budget reel like I had in the Monster Bass one is just your Lose LFS. Probably one of my favorite all-time reels. It's just a $99 reel. Aluminum frame, holds up well. Something with that aluminum frame, because when you're really hitting those fish hard and pulling them through, you know, flipping and pitching them around stuff, an aluminum framed reel will hold up longer. So that's what I recommend, but of course pick up what you can afford. The more important thing is getting out there and fishing. Now when it comes to the line on the two setups, again, same thing, my cover is going to dictate. Most of the time on my all-around combos, I go with 15-pound fluorocarbon. As I go up to the heavier stuff, usually 17 or 20, kind of depending on the line. I use P-Line Tactical. They're, you know, Seagar and VizX. There's Sunline, Assassin or Sniper, whatever. A bunch of really good fluorocarbons out there. Pick something that works for you in your budget range, but usually like a 15-pound and then up to like a 20, or some of them make like a 22 or 25, but usually 20 for me, bank fishing, is the highest I go to. Okay, now the reel speed, man, this is completely personal preference. There's people that will tell you there's no reason to go above like a 6.8. Other people will tell you, man, if I'm flipping and pitching, I don't go below anything, you know, under an 8 speed. I like a 7, kind of that middle of the road, like a 7.1 or 7.4, something like that. That's my favorite because, you know, if I need to, I can speed up a little bit. If I want to slow down, you know, if I'm throwing like a chatterbait or something, I can slow that down enough. Really is personal preference, but like a 7 speed is what I'm using, I don't know, 70% of the time, I guess I'd say. Okay, finally, I want to give you a few tips for fishing this. Now, number one is color. People love to get into lure colors, man. You see a new lure come out and you don't want to get just, you know, a pack. You want to get 15 different colors. You're always looking for that magical color, right? Well, for me, I try to keep it really into simple 2 different color, you know, designations when I'm flipping and pitching, throwing a jig, something like that. So I've got kind of my lighter, more natural, and then I've got a darker. So for me here in the Midwest, for whatever reason, purples seem to work well. So the first one is this Candy Craw, and this is a 3-inch. So a little bit smaller, more compact. You know, if I'm flipping a lot of smaller ponds and, you know, fishing around some lakes that are pretty small, a lot of times a little bit smaller lure like this does a little bit better. I'm probably not fishing, you know, a little pond that's got 10-pound bass in it. You know, around here, a big bass might be 5-6 pounds here in Iowa. So I like to go to something a little bit smaller, a little bit more natural looking. So a green pumpkin blue, you've got a bunch of different options, but something that's in a natural kind of lighter hue. Now, when I get to the dirtier water, I go to a darker color. So for me, that's usually going to be like a black and blue. This is the Tequila Sunrise Orange Flake. So it's got that orangey, am I colorblind? It's got that purpley pink kind of belly to it. And then it's got that black with the orange flake in it. But for whatever reason, Tequila Sunrise has killed it here in the Midwest for me throughout the years. So black and blue, black and red, Tequila Sunrise, this Craw Daddy that's like black and orange. Pick a darker color that works for you. It makes a good silhouette in that dirtier, muddier water. And I like to go up to a larger size, a larger bait. You can see these ribs on here are larger. It's got more, you know, appendage flap. It's just got more plastic to it. It's moving more water. And remember, fish don't only feed by sight. They've got the lateral line. They've got a number of different ways to target stuff. So even if, you know, they can only see 3 inches in front of them, they can feel this from a lot farther away. So I bump up to a little bit bigger plastic, darker color that makes a silhouette in that muddy water. Now, the second tip I'll give you is if it looks fishy, fish it. That's a tip from my buddy Randizzle, but I get asked all the time, how often do you stay in a spot? And if you see a log, how many times do you pitch it or a brush pile? Well, if it's something that you've been fishing through the day and you've noticed that any sort of big, like round log kind of sticking in the bank at 6 feet deep or whatever, you've caught a fish off every one, you come up to one and you throw to each side of it, you don't catch anything, but you've been catching them on those all day. Throw more to that. Maybe I'll spin 10, 20 flips and pitches into it if it's kind of matching my pattern. It could be grass lines. It could be, whatever you've noticed throughout the day that you're taking this, you're flipping it around it. It's not just one pitch at an object. 2, 3, 4, 5 pitches depending on how good it looks, and then I'm moving on. But if it's something that looks really good to me, I'll spend a little bit more time there. But I don't have a magic time limit, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. Just depends on how good something looks. All right, folks, we talked about rigging this thing up. We went over the combo. And I gave you a few tips for fishing this thing, but I want to hear from all of you. Comment below and let me know, do you have any tips for fishing the Strike King Rodent or a similar beaver style flipping and pitching bait that you think will help others out? That's the one thing that's awesome about the Monster Bass community is there's a bunch of people that watch, me, Alex Rudd, Gramps, Burley. They watch all those channels and are always commenting and talking on our lives. And that's what I love is the community. So feel free to help others out. I am by no means a master at this. I'm just somebody who loves to fish and go over this stuff. So if you've had success in your area, share it with people. But anyway, that's enough from me. Again, my name is Devon from DEBO's Fishing. Thanks for watching on the Monster Bass channel, and until next time.